Our agenda. Welcome. Lisa, come on up. You're up. Well, you know, COVID kind of shut everything down.
It really did. It really has been a couple of years of, I can't even explain it. Loss, grief, some lessons learned, certainly some new appreciation for things that matter, you know, so. Well, should I get started, Mr. Chairman?
Oh, absolutely. Please do.
Right. Mr. Chairman, members of the council, thank you for having us, and it's always good to be here. I'm glad we could come back. With me today is Casey Peck, and I'll give her a minute to introduce herself. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for letting me come today. My name is Casey Peck. I'm the IHS Tribal Section Supervisor for the Health Resources Division at DPHHS. So I oversee most of the administrative pieces of the services for Medicaid that the tribe participates in.
Important person I brought with me, right? We co-piloted because we had to get across some mountain to get here.
Oh, good. Well, it's great to meet you, Casey. And thank you for your good work.
And for those that don't know me, I'm Lisa Evers. I serve as the Tribal Relations Manager at the Department of Public Health and Human Services. I'm Blackfeet and Turtle Mountain, enrolled at Turtle Mountain, and a Blackfeet descendant, born in Browning, and that's where my family is. So we were talking about fishing. I was showing them fishing pictures from fish up at Forehorn. So do that a lot, go home a lot to be with family to fish and be in the mountains and all of that. So my maiden name is Harwood. My dad was Murray Harwood. They called him Sticks, so a big basketball player. And we lost him a few years back, and my mom is the original Marilyn Monroe. So, so you could always say you talked to Marilyn Monroe's daughter because it's true. But been with the state of Montana for 22 years now. I really only went to Helena to get dental coverage. That's what I needed at the time, and stayed. So it's an honor to be working on all of your behalf. Honestly, I enjoy my position as a tribal relations manager, bringing resources and advocating on our partnership with tribes. So part of that work is working directly with tribal governments, with Indian Health Service, with the urbans, with Indian people that contact me directly. And then much of that work is internal, right, in educating others. So it's been a fun job. It's crazy, it's chaos, but it's certainly enjoyable. So.
Well, you do a fantastic job and we appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Go ahead, Lynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. And once again, Lisa, thank you. I just wanted to let the council know that Lisa was extremely instrumental in the Medicaid expansion for all. And there were at one time a lot of proposed changes that were happening, and Lisa was really went out of her way to keep us informed on the issues and the impacts of what would happen. So we're really appreciative that you're up there in Helena and advocating for us, because you have helped a lot of our people, a lot of people throughout the whole reservations in Montana, and we're just grateful that we have healthcare insurance now because of you. So thank you for your hard work.
You're welcome. Appreciate that. So part of our work is to come out and do tribal visits. We've been doing that every spring and every fall. A little bit interrupted with COVID certainly, but we wanted to get here first because we haven't been here for a while. And so this is our first visit actually. Tomorrow we'll go visit the Missoula Urban Indian, the All Nations. We try to get to every tribe, every urban, the IHS area office, and all of the IHS facilities. So that's our plan before I go on vacation on May 20th. So going on vacation, yeah. I'm taking my mom on a trip to Seaside, Oregon.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that's a good spot.
Yeah.
I'm sorry we postponed you to this date and then this worst spring storm in recent years. So
Yeah, no,
apologies.
worked fine. I appreciate working with Jennifer to accommodate us, and and be here. So that's why we're here. So we wanted to bring you some information, share some information with you, but mainly just be available to you for any questions, concerns you might have. So as always, I bring a packet of information, and Jennifer's trying to train me to send these to her electronically, so it could be on your screen, and I haven't done very well with that. So in the left side of your packet is the organizational chart, and I always bring that with me to kind of just give you some flavor of this. Always looks different. It's settling down a little bit now, but we've had some pretty drastic changes, with the new change in administration that we've had, which is just over a year now. So this is just a snapshot of our leadership. We're about 3,000 employees for DPHHS. And Director Adam Meyer is our director, and I hope to get him out here sometime. He's kind of busy with, all you gotta do is read the newspapers, right? The state hospital is certainly taking a lot of attention right now. Along with the legislative process has changed a little bit, and so they are continually involved in our lives all the time now. So it's a little bit different. So anyway, but I'd like to get him out here sometime to have a direct visit with you folks. So a couple things just to update you on. If we look at that organizational chart and we go over to the top left on the blue, a new position in our department is the Chief of Staff, Charlie Brereton. What's important to know about that is he also serves as a governor's health policy advisor. So he's really in a dual position as a Chief of Staff or second in command for our agency, and then also works for the governor. So that's the first time in my time in state government I've seen that. So very involved in what we're doing. You'll also notice that we have now filled the American Indian Health Director position with Stephanie Ironshooter. She had a conflict today, so she couldn't be here, but the intent is she would be with us in the future on these meetings. And we have some new type positions with provider relations, with faith and community-based services. Those are all new kinds of positions in the agency. Legislative and regulatory affairs, really about our director comes in, does an assessment, sees some gaps, reorganizes, builds new positions. That's kind of how it works. You might be going through some of that yourself, right? With your new leadership here too. It's just how it works. We get that. If you look down the middle, just under Director Adam Meyer, you're going to see Marie Matthews, who couldn't be here. The last picture I got from her, so she lives about 8 miles past the library in Helena, and she had a picture with 5 pop cans stacked up, and the snow was almost twice that amount. So she's kind of snowed in. So anyway, she couldn't be here. Marie is the state Medicaid director as well. I would say acting state Medicaid director because she's moved on to this new position, but we're having a hard time filling the Medicaid director position, and it's crucial. And she's been a great partner for Indian Country, but she would normally be with us as well. And then I guess I would say, just some reorganization with a lot of our leadership moving to different positions within the department. I don't know that there's a lot of surprises necessarily. I think things just evolve to different places. One big change involves the right side of the right bottom of the org chart. So we had a couple divisions, the addictive and mental disorders division, and we had the children's mental health or developmental disabilities division. We've combined those into the behavioral health division now. And then we've moved all of those facilities, all those purple boxes. Those are all our state facilities, including the state hospital. Those will be moved under one group, and the management will be done just a little bit differently. The director's kind of overseeing all that right now. So again, he's fairly busy, but has great big plans to kind of work with all of those facilities to organize better, to be more efficient, that kind of thing. That's kind of what they promote, is more efficiency. So that's just kind of a view. Casey is down there in that light purple section as well, under the Health Resources Division. That's where a lot of the Medicaid folks are. And Casey is a unique position in our agency, really just as mine is as well, to focus just on Medicaid with tribes and also IHS. So we had her for a while, and then she left and went to corrections to Board of Crime Control, and then we convinced her to come back, and I'm the happiest person in the world because Casey has a unique set of skills and knowledge that is so critical to every decision we make, because you have to ask 10 more questions when you're talking about tribes and the services they deliver, understanding the 638 agreements and all of that, and Casey gets that. So we're very happy to have her back. So next in your folder on the left side, I put a couple handouts in there about COVID and just wanted to bring information to you. You know the impact certainly of what it's been, but I keep track of it on a daily basis. The first report I highlighted is April 11th. So we publish this report every single day on our website. And really what I look back at is the last page that I've highlighted, where it shows the number of cases and the number of deaths for those that identify as American Indian. So we're at 9% of the cases statewide, and we're also at 11% of the deaths. That's low compared to in 2020, mid 2020, I think we were at 32% of the deaths statewide and maybe 16% of the cases. That was probably the worst situation. And that's when, folks were dying every single day, honestly. Regardless of all the measures put in place to try to not, to restrict people's movement and not transmit this disease. So that's certainly progress, but that's a lot of people to lose in what I would say is a short amount of time. So just wanted to give you that for your attention. The next document is what we call a weekly epi profile. And I think this is something you can just look at some point, but I think what I wanted to bring to your attention is really on page we're moving to an endemic stage, but right now we're still in a public health emergency. And there's been a lot of breakthrough cases, and no one ever talks about it because we're really at a different place in messaging and that kind of thing. But if we look at that as of April 1st, we've had 42,800 confirmed breakthrough cases. That's people that are fully vaccinated. And of that number, 1,422 hospitalizations and 389 deaths. That's kind of new information for people, right? Because you kind of think if you're vaccinated, you're going to be okay. But clearly there's
question.
still impact.
Question, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead, Lynn.
Did it distinguish what type of vaccination was used on death per capita basis?
Not that I know of, no. So just some information that we published that weekly and wanted to just share that with you. And then the last couple pages is by county, so you could look at the counties that are part of your reservation and certainly see the impact. But again, I think you've felt the impact. The next document is numbers that I bring around Medicaid expansion. So that's the blue and the green, and then there's one additional sheet. But really, we could just look at the blue sheet. So this is for major reservation county, and each block is just a reporting period that I picked roughly every 3 months to report the number. If we go back to the last page 3, where I've highlighted the last block, this is our most current information. So, the first block is March 2nd, 2016. Medicaid expansion started January of 2016, and so that was my first reporting period. Now our latest full report is as of January 1st, 2022. And how you read this is I did each of the 7 reservations. I chose the major county and I used those numbers. And so if we go to January 1st and we were looking at Lake County, for example, we would see that in Lake County, there's 4,285 individuals enrolled in Medicaid expansion. And of that, 47% or 2,031 identify as American Indian. And so we are at our highest number of Medicaid expansion with 113,850 statewide. That's 10% of our population. And of that number, 16% are American Indian. That's a lot of people that now have healthcare coverage, right? I mean, that has far-reaching benefits beyond just the individual, but also your facilities, the revenue you generate, the services you can deliver. So we need to talk about that a little bit because the state legislature is coming up. And while the bill doesn't sunset this particular time, it does sunset in the next session. And so it doesn't mean it won't be talked in this session. So you might want to be prepared for that. And we'll meet later with the tribal health department to talk in detail about Medicaid revenue and that kind of thing. And we do have the report in here as we always bring it. But the idea of separating these numbers out and also the Medicaid revenue by Medicaid expansion numbers and Medicaid is that it will give you tools to use when you're telling your story in the state legislature about the impact.
Go ahead, Lynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now, Lisa, a couple of visits back when you came to meet with us, we mentioned that we were contemplating on developing a tribal nursing home. Well, there is an opportunity that has came up just recently that the tribes are still seeking questions and answers about how we would move forward on this. And one of the questions I had was there was a rate that was shown to us on what Medicaid pays. I think it was on a daily basis. So is that negotiable? Is that something that's different from every tribe?
No. And so can I give a little history on that?
Please.
So a little background on that is we have two tribes that own and operate their own nursing home, Blackfeet and Crow. Mary Dalton was the state Medicaid director at the time. And we were paying a daily rate similar to what everybody else in the state gets. What that also meant is that we were also paying a state share of 35 cents on the dollar roughly. So that was coming out of our state general fund. And Mary Dalton said, I got a big idea. Maybe we could go to these tribes and we could say, if you 638 that service from IHS, you own and operate your own nursing home, you do your own hiring, we could work with CMS to get 100% payment from CMS, right, from the feds, and we could negotiate a rate. And so we did that. So roughly say the rate was $225, okay, a day. We worked with the Blackfeet, we went there, they got small numbers in the nursing home, they got old materials, they got old boilers, systems, all that kind of stuff, hard to recruit. Worked with them on their numbers. They at the time were supplementing that bill $1 million a year out of tribal funds. And then we went to Crow, a little bit smaller, a little bit different kind of residents, and old 30-year-old vehicles transporting all over, trying to get people to different places. We negotiated with them. We came up with a rate. We took Northern Cheyenne's highest IDC rate, and we made a proposal to say, this is the rate that we're asking for the tribal nursing home that only tribes would get. They approved all but $2 of it. And so that was back in 2014. What was the number at the time? Roughly 284 or something like that?
$314 and some change.
Okay, so that's how that rate was developed. And only those two tribes get it. And if you guys ran a nursing home, you would get that. The beauty that was built into it by Mary Dalton was an inflation factor. And it's tied to, so just a couple of days ago, we got the new IHS all-inclusive rate for inpatient hospital, for outpatient services. That we've been waiting for that. Last year it came out like the second day in January, but we just got it a couple of days ago. We use that inflation or deflation, last year it was a deflation actually, to then reassess that nursing home rate, and it can go up or it can go down. Last year it went down $7.11. By all accounts right now, the numbers that we just got to look at before we came, it appears to be another jump. And so we'll be calculating that, but that's kind of how it was built. And if a normal nursing home is getting $225 and you're at $585 right now, and likely another jump, I don't know that you're gonna, sometimes when you open things to negotiate and you have to have the Fed's approval, it might not always go the way you want it to go. So everything is always moved in your favor. If we went from 300 and we're almost to 600 now, we've had one time it went down. So anyway, that's kind of the history of it. That's where it's at. I tend to think it's in a pretty good place. We don't advertise that necessarily. It's not a secret, but we don't go advertising about it either. But, and we've talked to Patty about it so that I know you were thinking about what you were going to do and just to give you information to help you make decisions, right? Yeah. So next in our file on the right side, we put together a list of the tribal task orders for you. So with our department, the tribe enters into a master agreement with us. We just redid that at the end of, at the first of last year. I was trying to get that done before the new administration come to make sure we could have another 10-year period. It's been fairly successful. So we have a master agreement with the tribe signed by the chairman and the department director. And then under that 10-year master agreement, we'll have task orders. And we wanted to put this list together for you. So hopefully it's helpful. You can see the kind of task orders we have. The division that we have over there is all acronyms and means something. I suppose you're supposed to reference the org chart to figure out what that is, but I don't like acronyms because not everybody knows what they are, but you can kind of see the type of, with the description, what kind of task orders we have. We have a lot with you. We probably have the most with you than we have with anybody, to be honest. And so we have a few of those coming up, such as one of the most important ones is the Medicaid eligibility determination that we'll talk more with Patty and Joe about later. But for tribes that run their own TANF programs, there's a federal law that says you have the ability to enter into an agreement with the state of Montana, which would be us, to do your own Medicaid eligibility determination. So we supported that effort. We negotiated with the tribe. I think we fund about 5 positions to do that work. And that is coming up in January 2013. So I'll talk with, like, say, Joe and Patty, but I would suggest we start working on that fairly soon, right? Just ahead of any deadline, because we have a legislature coming up and we can just make that seamless and start after the other one ends. But these are different task orders that we have and that we get to you, Chairman, for signature. We get them back, we get the money. Our most recent one is the HEART funds. That's the governor's initiative around the HEART initiative. Help and addiction through recovery and treatment is what HEART means. And in that legislation, it gave $62,500 to each tribe. And so, and a certain pocket of money for you to spend that on, but hopefully to fill a gap, right? Because we don't want you to replace it with, if you can already get Medicaid reimbursement for a service, we need you to do that. If you're already getting a federal grant or a state grant, do that. So you got to find that gap to use this money. But in the end, you'll get $125,000 over the next 2 years to fill a gap around mental health and so forth. So that's that. A couple more things before I wait for questions and then move it to Casey to go over the Medicaid revenue report. But along with coming out and having visits, we also have formal tribal consultations. And so we have 2 coming up, and both agendas, our latest agendas are in your packet. The first one being Tuesday, April 26th, and it's really related to SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition and Assistance Programs. That's specifically what it is. So we hope that you'll send some staff to come to that. We did offer in our letter that we would reimburse for up to 4 people for the tribe to send. And so I don't know who those people are, honestly, in your tribe. You one of them?
And Patricia Cushane, and there's one other that's going over for this SNAP
Wonderful.
consultation.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we're looking forward to that. Our folks have prepared hard. One thing we do, we have a little narrative under each of those sections because we really try to teach our staff, why are we bringing tribes to, this is just with tribal governments only. When we do a Medicaid consultations, it's with tribes and IHS and urbans. That's what's required in our state plan. This is just with tribes, but why are we bringing them to Helena? So we really go through this massive internal processing of, are we just going to share information? Because if we are, we could do that over the phone, right? We could do it different ways, but what are you asking for feedback on? So we tried to dictate that in our agenda. So we're looking forward to that. The next one is the Medicaid. Do you have both of them in there? Because I only have one. See, I did my own packet wrong. Thank you. The next one is the Medicaid tribal consultation. When we ask, our goal is when we say we're going to do a tribal consultation, we try to give you 6 weeks notice you can plan. And my goal is to have some sort of an agenda so you can plan accordingly. So we are still working through some of these topics, so we don't have a lot of information to share on those. But what we do know is that we want to give time for Stephanie Ironshooter for you to meet her and for her to introduce herself as the new American Indian Health Director. We are in a public health emergency that is set to expire. The date is sometime this week, so the feds will take action again to either extend it or not. But we've been guaranteed pretty much by Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, CMS, that we'll at least have a minimum of 60-day notice. So we're kind of on this revolving 60-day cycle. It's the way Marie looks at it. At any given time, we could be given 60-day notice. So we're really moving towards how do we unwind all these things we put in place so quickly with the public health emergency that came. So we're going to talk a lot about those. What we really want to hear from tribes is what has worked during this public health emergency. For example, being able to have visits over the telephone wasn't allowed before, right? But we had to adjust because people still needed services. So we want to hear from tribes like, this worked well for us. We'd like you to keep this. Not that we're going to, or we're able to, but we can always ask, right? So those are some of the conversations we want to have. There is some changes around Medicaid eligibility and continuous eligibility as a result of the legislative session changes last year. So we want to talk to you about that. That will have some impact. So as you looked at the Medicaid expansion numbers and they keep going up, we haven't taken anybody off. Because we're in this public health emergency, we haven't removed anybody. So we'll need to start those processes again to recertify people. They might have got a job and they don't no longer qualify, but we haven't taken anybody off at all. So we'll have a conversation around that. We'll talk a little bit more about the HEART initiative. We had a call with all tribes this morning, all tribal health departments, around a pot of money that's going to be available to the tribe to respond to as a formal RFP. It's called the jail grant here on this particular page, but we took some of our dollars, we repurposed it, and we know that there's a need to provide services in local detention facilities, a tribal jail, a county jail, and Medicaid doesn't allow reimbursement to provide those services in that kind of facility. So this is some money that tribes could respond to. Joe Dergla was on, Dr. Fox was on as well to listen to us for that conversation this morning. So different things like that we want to talk about. So that's what our tribal consultation is on that one. And then finally in your packet is the Medicaid revenue report that we wanted Casey to kind of go through a little bit, which again is just a tool for you to see the kind of dollars that you're bringing in through Medicaid. We've split it out between Medicaid and Medicaid expansion, Medicaid and Medicaid expansion separately so that you can kind of see. We started these to say, here's your revenue over this particular period of time. Here's where your dollar's going to, right? Here's where your check's going to. We one time had an address going to California, so it kind of made us nervous. So we thought we better just put this all in writing for people. And so it's been a good tool for people. And then also, I always look at it like, is there opportunities that we're not taking advantage of, right? That you could. So that's the intent of this Medicaid and Medicaid revenue report. So with that, if you'd like, we could move on to Casey, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you, Chairman, members of the council. So as Lisa said, we've been working on this report for a number of years now. And then we like to come out and hopefully talk to everyone about it and see if what we've put together is helpful and makes sense and answer anybody's questions about how things are going in Medicaid. As Lisa said, we have about 18 months worth of data on here. We do pull it together in a state fiscal year form. So year one is going to run from July 1st of 2020 to June 30th of 21. And then the second year is going to give you 6 months worth of data for July 1st of 21 to December 31st of 21. And then when we come out in the fall, we'll have the next 6 months for the full 2 years to share with you guys. Page 2 is just sort of our overview that explains a little bit about what is in each chart and how they're broken down. On page 3, this is an overview of all your payments for the last 18 months up through December 31st. And this combines both Medicaid and Medicaid expansion. So as you can see in the blue, that's both of them together for the first year. And then the second year broken out, Medicaid expansion is in the orange. And then just your regular Medicaid population is going to be represented by the purple blocks. On page 4, this is also a combination of both your Medicaid and Medicaid expansion populations. And what we've done is we've broken it out by service. So you can see how much you're being reimbursed for dental, pharmacy encounters, THIP. So you can kind of compare those in a quick glance. And then we've also done it in a different format on page 5 where we've broken it out by month. So you can see what you're bringing in each month. So there's a couple of different views. So you can get an opportunity to kind of see the revenue that's coming in and where it's coming from. On page 6, we've really broken it out. Again, we're going to start with Medicaid and Medicaid expansion together. But here we really put some actual numbers to each month and to each service. So this first chart is going to be from July to December of 2020, and it's going to show you each month what was reimbursed for each of those services. And then there's a total on the right-hand side for the first half of the year. And then when you go down, you'll get the second half of the year. So you can kind of see how things are going. And then on page 8, we broke it out to just Medicaid so that you could see for your strictly Medicaid patients what you were paid for. And then when we get to page 10, we've broken it out by the expansion population so that you can really see where the money is coming from and be able to compare how much you're getting paid for expansion versus how much you would be getting paid for just a regular Medicaid population. And then on page 12, as Lisa was mentioning, this is where we break down hopefully where the money is going to and who it's being billed from. So as you can see, this is like your pharmacy, THIP, passport, and then your general sort of health services.
Like this is the money page to me, right? Like I can look at the first year, 16 million, the second year is 8 million. Some of that was during, when the pandemic started first off, which is pretty good, but in all comparisons, it looks like you're on track to at least potentially bill what you billed that first year, which was again, right when the pandemic started.
So I'll stop there for a minute because there are a lot of colors and graphs and numbers so far on all of those pages. So I'll stop there for a minute to see if anybody has any questions. All right. So when we get to our next tables on our next pages, we really just include these as informational purposes. And so these are the revenue codes that are currently open for tribes or IHS, depending on the services that they offer to bill. So this is, I think, kind of informational. So if there's anything on here that currently you're like, I don't think we provide that service, it's a billable service. Maybe we should consider that information kind of lines out what revenue codes are currently billable. And I think that when we first started doing this, all of them fit on one page.
Yeah.
It now takes 2 pages. So that's kind of exciting because we've been able to expand the different revenue codes and expand the services that we reimburse for.
That's a really big deal, in my opinion, because when I first started with the department, I think there was 2 or 3 revenue codes. And it was really these visits that we have with people and going out to tribal health. And, Kevin Hallett was a big one to say, hey, Lisa, we're getting eyeglasses, but we're not getting, paid for the exam. And so we added a second revenue code as we explored that further. Or we went to Crow, and Crow, had to transport their people to Billings for CAT scans. And so they decided to buy a CAT scan. And they said, could we do a negotiated rate? And we came back and said, actually there's other pieces of the CAT scan that you could bill for. And by the way, everybody who has a CAT scan read, they could bill for the reading of the CAT scan. So those are the kind of changes we've made. And it's really just been in the discussions that we've had directly with tribes and IHS to get those changes made. So yeah, now we're on 2 pages. Almost moving to 3.
I know, I noticed that. We're about to run out, which is exciting. The next 2 pages are just, I'll go to 16. 15 is really just one that I discuss more when we talk with tribal health departments, because that question always comes up a lot about diabetic supplies and routine versus non-routine. So we added that as an informational page. The last page on 16, what we share here are the different provider types that tribes might be offering services in. And so some tribes run their own ambulance, which is a completely different provider type than our tribal provider type for regular health services that they bill under. And so we've broken that out so that especially the health departments and their billers can kind of get a grasp about where all the services fall and what they need to be looking at.
In a fee-for-service case, he basically is the same what other providers get across the state as well, right?
Correct.
So hopefully that's helpful to you. It might be new to some of you. Some of you have seen it before, but again, just a tool for you, and look forward to talking to tribal health through more of that. So I just have one more thing to say before I'm done, Mr. Chairman. So, if we went back to the org chart, we had a pretty big change in one of our divisions, the Child Support Services Division, which we've renamed from Child Support Enforcement Division to Child Support Services Division, which I think is more positive. So in that yellow section at the bottom of our org chart is the Child Support Services Division, and Christy Twardowski, who has been here a lot of times in a different division. She was with the Human and Community Services Division and was key to helping negotiate that Medicaid eligibility determination task order we talked about. And so, so she's now taken on a new role as the administrator in that Child Support Services Division. And then we also had a regional manager position open, which is the Great Falls office, which works with the tribes up there in the High Line. The Missoula office here works with your tribe specifically. So Christy and Marty Vining was the regional manager. So when they came on just a few months ago, we scheduled calls with every single tribal child support office. 1, to introduce our staff. 2, learn how things were going. And really 3, talk about what could we do better? What could we do different? Is everything working well? We had a lot of really good feedback and came away with some charges of some changes we need to make. These 2 are really strong on constant communication and being available to each other. So we are now hiring for a field services bureau chief. Once we get that filled, I think they'll be out to visit with your child support. We had a great long conversation with Hank to understand what's not working, what is working. So we'll start having some consistent meetings with them. This is important work, right? In supporting children for the rest of their life. I was a single parent. I raised my son since he was 2 alone. I depended on child support. It mattered to me being able to feed him. So it's really, really important work. But there's different jurisdictions. People move on and off the reservation. if you have a case here and the person moves to Butte, can we help collect that because it's now in our jurisdiction? Those kinds of things that we want to make sure. Sometimes we just transfer cases and they just show up in the mail. Is that the best way to do it? Or could we do it better, right? Could we communicate, actually pick up the phone and call someone? Hey, this case is coming your way. So those are some of the things we're working on with the child support. So I wanted to make sure you were aware of that. We also have an MOU that's been in place for a while. We want to revisit those to make sure they could be a little more inclusive of really what's expected of both of us in a better working relationship. We also have a system called searches where a tribe could get access to that and access some of the information, at the very least, to see if the state has a case open. Ideally, we don't want two cases open and two people collected from the same person. So that's another place that we're putting a lot of focus on. That's all I got, I promise.
Any additional questions for Lisa or Casey? Yeah, go ahead, Bing.
Lisa, good to see you again.
You too,
But
thank you.
I got a question. How often you gotta update your I'm gonna say. Lost it. But how often do you gotta update your insurance for Medicaid, Medicare, and Medicaid? Because I got a call the other day that I had to update my Medicaid. I thought, every last time I did this, I got on Humana. I don't know how I wound up doing that, but I wound up getting on Humana. And they don't charge me for nothing. Whenever I do get some medication or something, they don't charge me. Or if I go to the doctor or something, they don't charge me. But I kind of halfway scared to do anything anymore because, I don't know what's going to happen, because every time I thought I was already set up with Medicare. And then all of a sudden I got another thing saying I had to get on Medicaid. I said, I don't know why the heck I got to do that, but I just wonder how often you got to update your Medicare and Medicaid.
I don't know about the Medicare because we don't do the Medicare in our agency. Medicaid, those folks on there, typically there is a requirement to self-report changes. And so people still have that requirement. We're not acting on those, right? So say you're on Medicaid and then you got a job and you were supposed to report that, you can tell us. But right now, because of the public health emergency, we're not acting on that. In the future, that'll change probably fairly quickly here. And we'll talk about that at our tribal consultation. And then we do recertifications every year to verify information, and that can move people on and off of Medicaid. So that's how Medicaid works. We would normally have a Medicaid eligibility person here with us, but our team of 6 came down to just Casey and I. So, because we're willing to travel across mountains regardless, whatever it takes to get here. So if that helps, Bing.
No more questions? Patty?
I just want to make a quick comment and thank Lisa and her team. So that's really where all the data came when I provided the report on assisted living and skilled nursing. Lisa was very quick to kind of jump on it and set up a meeting with Casey and Barb Smith to really start to answer our basic questions so that we can make sure council's informed in making their next decision on whether or not this is a business and service that CSKT gets involved in. So I just want to say thank you to Lisa for being the wonderful connector you are and getting the right people to the table to ask the questions and make sure that we get the information and the data that we need. So thank you very much, Lisa and Casey.
You're welcome. I mean, that's one of the benefits, Mr. Chairman, is we get to work with all the tribes. So we see all kinds of different situations. We've been in nearly every single health facility across the reservations and IHS and urbans. And so sometimes we can connect you with other tribes as well to to see what they're doing or know what they're doing. Or, you know, you want to build transportation and we can say, call for build up, whatever they do, they know how to do it well. And so, you know, those are the connections we can make and we're always happy to do that. And vice versa, you know, people look to you folks as the leaders. You're always talked about in a very respectful way that you lead the state with it in as far as progress with tribal nations. So people, I think that the opposite side is that is they think you don't need any assistance either or need any additional resources. And that's not true. You should have the same opportunity as everybody else, regardless. And so we're there to remind people about that. But you folks are a leader. But there are services and other reservations that you may want to do. And so we're happy to connect you with folks. So thank you, Patty. Appreciate that.
Lisa, we don't ever want you to retire. So, and when the roads are bad, we know, you know how to drive in them. And you have a good co-driver. So thank you so much for braving the weather and coming over and meeting with us. And yeah, sincerely, we really appreciate your work with us. And you've been extremely professional over the years. And we wish to continue that relationship and thank you so much. Your information is outstanding. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having us.
You bet. Good to meet you, Casey. I'm glad she got you back.
Me too. You can't
Thank
go
you.
anywhere either.
It's good to be back.
Yeah, just Department of Corrections. Yeah. That's,
Me and Casey went to Billings for, like, Carol, we seen you there last time, I think, and oh my God, we got to Three Forks and it was 100 miles of straight ice. And we made it. We were a little bit late, but we made it. But we got to Big Timber and we got to stop and go to the bathroom. And I don't know if we can even go down the little tiny turnoff, which is a baby hill, or we should wait till the rest area because they were going up. I mean, that's how icy it was. There wasn't a speck of sand anywhere. And Casey's like, I don't know if I want to do this again, but anyway, she trusts my driving, so here we are.
I gotta ask you this. Maybe I heard this before or not, but Tony Hardwood, is he related to you?
Tony?
Yeah.
I don't know him.
Okay, just wondered. Okay.
Yeah,
He's from up Browning Way, but anyway.
probably is. You know, I was raised around my mom's family, the Monroe side and the Whitford side a lot. So I wasn't around that Harwood family a lot. And so really just learning a lot of who they were and are. And so that's been kind of fun, you know, as an adult I don't have the memory that I used to have. So it's like people have to keep telling me who they are to me, but it's been fun. A lot of folks are on the Valier, you know, a lot of my family's buried in Valier as well. So,
Cool.
yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to remember. We have big family clans. It's hard to remember everybody.
Yeah, like I'm such a visual, like if I can write it all down, I think I can remember better, but anyway, it's been fun. We're all family in the end anyway, so,
That's true.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman and the council. We appreciate your time and please, if you need anything or have questions, everybody should have my personal cell phone. You're welcome to use it anytime. Happy to answer questions or get you connected okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Drive safe and have fun in Missoula. Next we have, you are on? Okay, are we going into executive session? We'll move into executive session for